The planets have aligned, and once again, with ruthless monotony, the prophecy has come true. That's right, folks. It's time for another episode of the Roundtable Rethink podcast with me, your host, Uncle Paddy, joined this week again by twin brother and spare parts bin. That's right, he's back. Andy, the asshole.
Woo! Come on now.
And sadly, the extension of a running theme. Unfortunately, we are not joined by the sage himself, Stevie Tel Avivi, who is now off gallivanting in Toronto.
He's like the bloody
Canada.
littlest hobo. Every stop he makes, he finds a new friend. Can't stay for long, just turn around and he's gone again. Brother Stephen, hope you're having a wonderful time in Toronto.
Yeah, he's in Toronto. He'll be back Wednesday, and so he's been there for the weekend. So sadly, he's out again this week, and I'm gone for next week. So it will probably be
the summer holiday
the week after that before we get everybody back on the freaking podcast. All right, so there you go. So this week, what we're going to be discussing, we're going to be talking about what the hell happened to ChatGPT in the last 7 days. We're going to be deep diving into that. And then we're also going to be digging into a very troubling trend, which is the growing graveyard of failed AI projects. Why are so many companies getting it wrong? So they're the two big topics we're going to dig into today. So Andy, before we get into the docket, as always, how's the week been?
So, as you know, last week I had to miss my first ever roundtable rethink. I've called in from holiday before, but unfortunately we were sharing a lodge with a bunch of other family members from England down in a wonderful setting of Slaley Hall in the Northumberland countryside in England. Big Castle Estate, championship golf course. There was 8 of us in a lodge. The weather was absolutely fabulous. The golf was amazing. I didn't score very well, but it was wonderful getting around a championship course. The Huntsman. And again, it was just one of those kind of messier, boozier weeks. But it was great. Great company. Great banter. Great crack. But I did miss the show, and I listened to you and Stephen last week, and I was very impressed with the effort that you put in flying solo without Andy, the asshole.
All right. Well, let's screw up the perfect record that we've got by digging into this week's docket. So, ChatGPT. So I'll get us started here. So I stayed up late on the evening that I knew the news was going to break, and then the 5-6 people that I rely on for AI news and advice break these videos, and these are people that I trust. These are people that are not hyperbolic. These are very realistic people who are prepared to call bullshit when they see it. A good example of that would be Theo at T3 Chat. And so very uncharacteristically of him, he posts this video basically talking about godlike performance from this GPT-5 model that he was an early access user. So him and another dozen people go early, a dozen really big influential AI influencers in the space, go early access to the model, and the commentary was uniform. They were knocked dead by its capabilities. Yeah. And not just its capabilities to write code, but its capabilities to produce conversational code, its capabilities to do instruction following, its capabilities to power agentic workloads at a fantastic price point. And so it was just wall-to-wall, unbelievably positive. So as the days tick by, we start to see a trend developing, which is ChatGPT-5 sucks. What happened to ChatGPT-5? Yep. So from his early access, Theo goes on holiday. He goes to DEF CON. And then when he gets back from DEF CON 5 days later, has to put out this video called ChatGPT-5 sucks. Yeah. And do this big mea culpa. Now, you know, the internet's now very kind to people who throw out hyperbolic claims and then have to roll them back. So a lot of people in the comments, oh, he's a paid shell. He's on the fucking payroll of OpenAI. How can we trust him again? He's actually a really good dude. He was reporting accurately and faithfully on what he was experiencing and what he'd seen. Yeah. And then when he went on holiday and came back, he didn't even recognize the model that he was using. So something happened to the model in that period of time. The model got nerfed. Yeah. It's still unclear.
And for everybody listening at home, nerfed defined as
it got fucked. Like
it degraded,
It degraded, and it wasn't anything like the capability that any of the early insiders remember using.
And a huge speed penalty. I mean, because I'm a pro user, I pay the 180 quid a month subscription or whatever it is. I was spamming you with messages the minute it dropped, talking about how blazingly fast it is.
Yeah.
It's now the diametric opposite. It is dog shit slow today.
Yeah.
To the point where
I
was ready to bail on it a couple of times.
I think a couple of things happened through the week. I think one of the things that became clear is GPT-5 was one of the first models with a dynamic router in front of it. So the request comes in, then the router decides what version of GPT-5 to invoke in the background, and then how long to think for.
Yeah.
It's supposed to think for the perfect amount of time to solve your problem. That was one of the big innovations of the model. It's pretty clear that router doesn't work very well.
Yep.
Okay.
Agreed.
And so tasks where it needed to think harder, it was thinking shorter, and tasks where it could have think shorter. Thank a word. It could have been thinking shorter. It was thinking for a much longer period of time. So I think there's fundamentally an issue with that dynamic router. By the way, I don't doubt that all this stuff will get figured out. He is actively working with OpenAI and with the guys at Cursor. So Cursor being the almost like de facto AI coding tool right now. Even the founders of Cursor went, something happened here. Like, we are not seeing at all the same results that we saw. So it's not just a few influencers. It's basically everybody who had early access is all now saying the same thing. OpenAI is paying attention.
Yeah.
I think they will figure out what happened to it, and they will fix it. And it probably gets fixed over the next couple of weeks. But it's pretty clear from launch date, fast forward a week, it's now half the model that they were basically presenting it as.
And you know that, and there's some evidence to back up that claim, because they put all the models back in the manual selector again. So you can now go and manually select thinking. If you're a pro user, you can select Thinking Pro for like heavy research tasks and stuff.
And you can go back and select 4.0 as well. You can
select 4.0 and 3.03 and stuff like that as well. So I would say that that's almost certainly the case. It's probably a scaling issue as well.
Yeah.
You know, there's a temptation to throttle the thinking on it when 800 fucking million people are trying to use it simultaneously, and your servers are turning into molten slag heaps.
So that's a really good point, and it probably explains the performance issue. So don't forget that 4.0 was largely a retrieval model, and so it was fast, but it wasn't a reasoning model. It wasn't doing a ton of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
You've replaced a retrieval model with a reasoning model, and they fundamentally consume way more tokens than retrieval models. So the fact that GPT-5 became the default would explain why over time, as everybody piled on, performance degraded, because they just don't have capacity. They'll be capacity constrained for years to come. Do you know, I think
so all you can do to basically load balance tokens across the requirement is throttle the thinking time on it.
And throttle the usage across different tiers of users. And so I think I said this maybe on last week's podcast, but I think I watched a interview with Sam a week or two ago, and he literally said when they get their hands on 10,000 extra GPUs, they rack them and they become saturated within 60 seconds.
Yeah.
So there's
no
limit.
Precedent for how this company's scaling.
Yeah. There's no limit for the amount of tokens that the world wants to consume right now, and we're just capacity constrained. Do I think all these things will get solved? Yes. Do I think ChatGPT has tremendous promise, and we saw glimpses of that at the very
100%.
beginning? Absolutely. Do I think this won't even be a story in 6 weeks' time? Correct. But right now, there's a tremendous amount of negative sentiment behind ChatGPT. They showed us the promised land. They showed us the potential of what all this stuff can be. And then they yanked it away from us within 24, 48 hours.
And I think there's a concern that, again, maybe a topic for another day, that, you know, these models, instead of being these hammer blow step forward for the previous generation of models, they're all getting a wee bit more incremental than the last thing.
But that's what ChatGPT-5 was when it was first launched. It was a hammer blow.
Oh no! In terms of
it was one shot. Like if you watch Teo for 3, he's like, it was one shot in apps that I'd never even been able to come close to one shot.
But the bottom line,
something like 4.1 opus.
But the bottom line is, it was lowering the benchmarks on most of the benchmarks for like Grok 4 Heavy.
But benchmarks don't mean shit.
Yeah, in the real world, I get it. Like,
in real life coding tasks, it was incredible for a brief moment, like godlike performance, and that gives me a lot of heart, because it tells me that that's possible, and even better results than that are possible down the line. So we saw a glimpse of what can be achieved. So anyhow, we'll see how the next couple of weeks develop. Like I said last week, I think we're probably only a week or two away from seeing new models from Anthropic. Who knows? They might move the whole thing forward
as well.
Again, in a significant way. And you have to think that we're weeks away from Gemini 3.0.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be a dull couple of weeks in AI. Stay tuned.
The people who are in that ecosystem like me, you know, all your prompts are optimized for the systems. You've got running GPTs inside the system. So there's nobody bailing on it over a week of, you know, relatively slower stroke poorer performance. You know, the guys that are in and paying for it are going to stick, you know what I mean? And they're going to give them the 6 to 8 weeks that they need to figure it out.
Okay. So because we went so hard on Chat GPT-5 last week, I thought we had to at least start with that, set the record
just
straight,
address it.
So that everybody knows, what's up?
What's up, pussycat?
All right, what else do we have?
Next on the docket is, so you and I spend a lot of time, the majority of our time now, speaking to business owners who are struggling with AI implementation. Mm-hmm. And there's a growing trend. If you speak to a lot of these guys, what they'll tell you is that they watched a bunch of YouTube videos, they downloaded somebody's slide deck, they joined somebody's 40 quid a month school community. They accessed a bunch of relatively generalized kind of surface level information on the subject to implementation, and then he immediately jumped back into their business and started hacking away, trying to build prompts that weren't producing the outcome that they were looking for, trying to build GPTs that were horribly hallucinogenic and unreliable, and having a stab at these kind of vibe code stroke no code automation solutions, which would invariably break or not even run in the first place. And so certainly for the people that I'm speaking to, what I'm seeing is an alarming amount of misfires and quite a high level of demoralization out there. Amongst business owners.
The trough of disillusionment, I think is exactly where we are right now in this whole implementation.
So everybody's looking online and they're going, my God, all these people are transforming their businesses with AI, but
why am I not doing
I've tried everything and 8 weeks later, nothing's changed inside the company. And so a lot of them are kind of giving up on the process, going back to their standard kind of modus operandi of running the company. And so I thought it was worth talking a wee bit more about why I think this kind of generic approach is failing so many businesses. Why the kind of standard tool set that comes out of the box with like OpenAI and Gemini's, particularly on GPTs and different things, are not working for most businesses, and really pivot that into, because you and I are now engaged, not just in having implemented AI successfully in our own companies, but we're now helping other businesses with that. Me, a lot smaller businesses, you've got a couple of really big businesses that you're working with. We certainly have learned a lot through that in terms of what works and what doesn't. And so this will be a wee bit of a kind of retread on some stuff that we covered before, but we're slightly different bent on it. So I thought a good place to start is with quite a controversial statement. So we are the AI twins. We're all about automation. We're all about doing things smarter and slicker. It's certainly been my experience that if you are truly trying to solve industry stroke business stroke departmental specific problems, I haven't found a solution yet that subverts the process of a very personal, very in-depth, in-person engagement with a business.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people will be quite surprised to hear that.
Yeah.
Because in this digital download world, the courses and stuff like that, why can you just download somebody's $997 course that shows you how to do the whole thing?
The reason that generalized advice generally doesn't work is because every organization is its own unique thing, right? It's its own unique people, its own unique culture, its own mix of capabilities or lack thereof. And therefore, trying to take one piece of generalized advice and just apply that across that is almost impossible.
It's a great insight. Every business is so unique, not just in terms of the industry or the business-specific knowledge, but the systems that they use, the culture that's inside the business, the politics that you need to navigate inside the business, and all that stuff needs to be delicately navigated if you actually want to get a successful outcome. Success being defined as, are you ultimately leaving these guys better than you found them? Are you solving real problems, unlocking real value inside the business? And can you truly walk away as Nanny McPhee saying that this is now an AI first company with AI in the veins of every department of the business? So if you really are truly trying to do that as an end state, the thing that's doing our heads in just now is we don't know how to scale up us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because it's
and
not
by the
an
way,
easy
if this
thing.
to anybody as we're talking here, if this sounds like a sales pitch, please do not contact us about AI implementation.
Definitely.
We are fucking
Inundated.
drowning in inbound
Yeah.
on this stuff.
Yeah.
What we're really doing here is passing along some of the stuff that we've learned. Because remember, this job didn't exist a year ago, right?
Yeah.
So everybody that's doing it has had to find their process that works. And we found our proprietary process that works in the real world.
Yeah.
Not on a PowerPoint or on a spreadsheet or on a downloadable fucking whatever, that actually works in real contact with the economy and with businesses. Yeah. So I thought a good place to start is, what important steps are you subverting by downloading a Prompt 101 engineering course, spending 3 hours on it, then immediately jumping into your business and trying to stab away at prompts
Right, okay.
that don't work invariably?
So you've missed one important thing there, right? What businesses are really struggling with is overwhelm.
Yeah.
There's so many tools and so many models and so many sub-models within each model maker that has all these different capabilities and different use cases. The most consistent feedback I get from everybody is like, we're just fucking overwhelmed. We don't know where to start with this. There just seems like a new tool popping up every 5 minutes. You know, if you're a marketing department, 1 minute it's Jasper. If you're in sales, the next minute it's Gong or HubSpot or some other.
Go high level or whatever.
Go high level. And so what's the right thing to consolidate on? And will that be a good choice in 3 months' time? So overwhelm is actually the number one issue.
Yeah.
And so what you've got to do is you've got to look at the characteristics of a business, right? So if you look at a small company with 25, 30 employees, they're in a non-regulated industry, they don't have any compliance like ISO or SOC 2, then do you know what? Just the cheap, nasty version of this is okay. Sign up for a ChatGPT account for everybody on the Teams plan is cool. You know, they don't have to. It gets them a range of models that solve different problems. So it gets you reasoning models, it gets you
Retrieval
vision models,
models,
it gets you retrieval models, it gets you models that are good at pretty much everything, right? It's a good daily driver.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that you have to consider when you're thinking about the tool stack for a company is the budget available to get everybody out with tools. You're going to get, so let's say you get 25 employees and there's 5 AI tools that you want to buy each employee.
100%.
Hundreds of licenses
And do you know what I'm
to go
seeing?
and buy and fund.
See, with the small businesses that I'm dealing with, do you know what I'm seeing most? The owner has got a ChatGPT account and he's getting 4 staff members to log in
for
to
it.
his ChatGPT account.
100%. So they're just getting everybody an account and getting everybody logged in and using it in an authorized way is like goal number one.
Yeah.
And you keep the tool set very narrow.
Yeah.
And so you start with 1 or 2 tools. So for me, it's usually ChatGPT because you get that different range of models and Perplexity for web research.
Yeah.
And with ChatGPT and a Perplexity account, you can get a shit ton of stuff done.
Yeah.
And it's 2 subscriptions. And not everybody in the company needs a Perplexity account, right? It's just the people involved in research tasks.
So is that a good pivot point then to really talk about how you imbue AI confidence in the team, the Tiger team, the executive sponsorship going in before you even get to tools?
Yeah, I think there's different personalities inside businesses. There's different levels of competence, capability, and to be quite frank, attitude as well.
Yeah.
And so the people side of this whole thing makes or breaks this. So if you're in with a capable, competent management team who've got a good attitude towards the whole thing, you're almost certainly going to be successful, right? But if you're in with a management team who've got a bad attitude, who don't want you to be there, it's been foisted upon them by the CEO or the backers of the business, and they'd rather you just pissed off and they've no interest in this, then it's almost certainly going to fail.
So what we're, for the people listening here at home, what you should really be getting a clear picture of at this point is, we started off this conversation where business owners start at AI implementation is hacking away at prompts. And what we're really trying to unpeel here in terms of the onion is that there's many, many steps to go through long before you ever get near building a prompt.
You've got to create a vision for it. I mean, everything starts with a vision. Like, what are you trying to be, right? You're trying to be an AI-first, AI-native business. What does that actually mean? Well, it means we're going to drive AI best practice adoption and usage into every corner of the business. Why are we going to do that?
And why should your staff participate in it?
Creating the psychological safety for them that they can participate without feeling like they're participating in their own execution.
Yep.
That's another big theme, right? Because the first thing people think when guys like me show up is, I know what's fucking happening here. They're trying to make this department more efficient so they can fire a bunch of people.
You'll automate my job and I'll end up getting fired.
So how do you create enough psychological safety where they can afford to engage without feeling like they're going to get the hatchet at the end of it? That's another huge part of it. So this is all stuff that happens way before you log anybody into a tool.
Exactly.
What's the why behind the whole thing?
Yeah.
Why are we engaging with AI? Why are we trying to become an AI first native business? Are you not only a business that can leverage AI inside the business to run the company operationally, but are you trying to imbue your products and services with AI capabilities to make your customers happy, to make your products more valuable,
more compelling and
compelling and future proofed? And so these are all the things that we consider up front, and then just create a vision for that. Like, so we want to drive AI adoption and best practice into every corner of the business. Why? Because we think we can get a 30% productivity gain if we can find 500 micro improvements in every single employee's month.
Yeah.
That creates 25, 30, 35% more capacity to do more. What does a business want to do? A business wants to grow and a business wants to do more.
Do more
and
with
if
the
you
same,
can do more with the same resources, then you can share some of that extra money with the employees. So that should be the incentive for everybody to engage. It's like, if we can go and produce 30% more results with the same corpus of employees, why would the business not share some of that money with the team? Right?
If we can free up 30% of your time and move you on to more kind of tasks that are more kind of directly connected to the revenue side of the business, then these chats run about remuneration at the end of the financial year are so much easier to have.
And that's why AI can never just be an IT initiative inside the business. It's not like, oh shit, we need to do AI. Quick, phone up the IT guys and tell them that we need to become AI
It's
native.
a culture and a heart and soul.
It's a simultaneous top down and bottom up effort.
Yeah.
Okay. Even the CEO doesn't get to escape this. The CEO kind of go, well, I'm offloading this to the team. Bullshit. How are you going to run the business if you don't understand what we're doing here, right? If the company's truly going to become AI first and AI native, so it's got to be from the CEO all the way down through the senior leadership team and from the lowest person on the team up.
So we've covered why
top down and bottom up simultaneously.
So we've covered why. We've covered explaining why you're doing this to your staff, getting buy-in for the team, getting executive sponsorship to do it in the first place, winning hearts and minds. We've talked about culture, but we've still got more steps to get through before we even get to prompting. So when we've done all that and everybody's on board and we've got everybody a chat GPT account, before any of that, we need to imbue them with the confidence to start playing with the tool. So how do you do that in a safe way inside of these businesses?
Well, you start by establishing a team that can drive this inside the business, right?
Your AI Tiger team.
Your AI Tiger team. So listen, this is a tough one because in very, very small businesses, everybody's
it might be
the
one
AI
person
Tiger
or two
team.
If
If you're a 5-man person company, then
one admin person,
everybody's in the AI Tiger team. But if you're a 200 people company, then you identify somebody from each functional part of the business. So you've somebody who represents sales, somebody who represents marketing, somebody who represents finance, somebody who represents professional services, support, operations, so on and so forth. And they become your AI Tiger team. Now, the characteristics of somebody in that team, if you think about the type of thing that they're going to be, right, they're going to go into their part of the business and be the chief educator for AI inside their part of the company. So if you're going to be the chief educator, what kind of skill sets and characteristics do you need? You need to be an awesome communicator, right? Okay. So communication is one of the kind of non-negotiables. You need to have decent strategic thinking skills.
Yeah.
So you've got to be close to how the business works and you've got to know the strategy of the business, the goals of the business, the type of things that they're trying to achieve. You want to be naturally curious and ideally you would have some natural leadership abilities, right? You'd already be established as a leader or
inside that department,
inside that part of the company. And you'd be close to how work gets done. Ideally, you wouldn't just have superficial understanding of how work gets done in that part of the business. You'd be at the coalface and actually have foundational understanding of the step-by-step processes of how work moves through that department. That's going to become foundational for a part that comes way later, which is how do you identify opportunities in that part of the business for automation?
Yeah.
Right. And you can't do that unless you're familiar with how work gets done in that.
So let's take that as an example. So you've now been appointed as the Tiger team leader inside the customer support department. What is the next thing you need to do before you even get anywhere near a prompt?
So that person works with somebody like me or you who can help upskill them to make sure they've got all the information they need. They know exactly what we're trying to achieve before they go and try and start being the chief educator inside their part of the business. So they're largely working with guys like me and you.
And what about the boring work of documenting workflows in the department and writing so that you can identify opportunities for prompting or, GPT interaction in the future?
So once we've upskilled them and we feel like we can let them loose inside their part of the business, the first thing that they would conduct is what I call the shadow AI audit.
Yeah.
So they go into their part of the company and before they try and lay down any best practice, before they do any education, they're just trying to take stock of what is actually happening today.
Yeah.
And it's an amnesty. There is no negativity associated with this part of the business, right? And I fucking lose my shit every time I see it happen. This is not about, we caught you using your personal Gemini account to solve a problem. Well, of course you were using your personal Gemini account.
Because the company didn't.
We never gave you a better way to do it. So this isn't about, trying to do gotchas on team members. This is about an amnesty. This is like, step forward, tell us what tools you're using, tell us what models you're using, tell us what problems you're solving, show us examples of prompts you're writing, show us examples of output that's solving problems for you, and let's capture that and document
it. Yeah.
So that allows us to know our baseline. It tells us where we are from a prompt engineering perspective.
Yeah.
It identifies accidental prompt engineering. Maybe there's already people in the fucking team that are just crushing it with writing prompts, and that's an important data point to know.
Yeah.
Because later in the process, we're going to build out our prompt library. So our shadow AI audit is the kind of first step of this whole thing. So what are the expected outcomes we'd want to see from that? Well, we'd want to identify pockets of where value is already being captured inside the business. We'd want to uncover inefficiencies. So where are teams struggling with AI output? Are they writing prompts, getting AI output that needs a ton of refining before it's any use to them? And that's a data point all by itself, because if there's a ton of examples like that, we know there's problems to be solved. We just know that we suck at writing prompts that solve problems. And in that, there's an opportunity.
And once those shadow AI audits have been concluded, can you start department by department, or does everything need to be collated into the one? I know the answer to all this, by the way. I'm asking questions on behalf of the audience. Or does everything need to be centralized in all the departments of the company before you start this process? Or should people get off the mark as they cross those thresholds?
Well, the information will come back in for the team. The AI Tiger team will be meeting on a weekly basis anyhow to review all the things that they learned in the last week. And so ideally, all the different parts of the business would move at the same speed. So
that's not real.
You bring all that information back. You would document it, you would review it as a team, you'd take the learnings out of that and document them, and then use that as part of your plan to go to the next step of the process, which is to actually engage your team with prompt engineering workshops. So prompt engineering workshops, which you would record, which would then actually contribute to your AI hub.
Yeah.
And we're going to come back and talk about what an AI hub is in a little bit. So you record those sessions. They can be formal, they could be informal, they could be lunch and learns, they could be over-the-shoulder sessions. But the first step is, how do you teach people the language of AI, which is prompt engineering? Not just the language of AI, let's be real, the new language of business.
And
prompt engineering, the new language of business.
It is the new language of business. And once you've produced the prompts, you've tested them, you've made sure that they're producing consistent output and that they pass all the quality thresholds over time to make it into the centralized prompt library. Can you just talk for a wee second about how important centralizing all the prompts is in a business and what it actually means in terms of IP for the company in the future?
So if a prompt's written properly, it's really bloody long. And it's time consuming to write a prompt properly, because if it's written properly, it will be paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs long. And that's a lot of effort to go to every time you want to solve a problem.
Yeah.
So ideally, you'd do that once, and then you would contribute that back to a centralized prompt library for the company. Now, again, the solution that you would use for that would largely depend on the size of the business.
Yeah.
If you're a reasonable sized business with a big team who needs to collaborate on these things, there's dedicated tools like Prompt Hub that can help store these prompts and then very quickly go copy paste them in the next time you need them. If you're a very small team with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, there's literally browser extensions that will allow you,
which I use myself. Yeah.
And so talk a bit about that. What do you use?
So I use a browser extension called Right Click Prompt, which is a really simple little
free
extension.
Add it to Chrome.
Add it to Chrome. You can launch it inside a ChatGPT chat box itself. Just right click prompt, select the prompt, paste it in, fill in the variables, hit return, and you get the output that you're looking for. So very efficient way, particularly, and again, one of the benefits of that, particularly if you're onboarding new team members, it's a great library of quality information for them to access. It basically cuts down the kind of training time, the discovery time to value.
Yeah.
Because
they go, I'm trying to solve a LinkedIn post creation problem. I've already got a prompt that does that. Copy, paste, fill in the variable.
Exactly.
Now, so when that prompt gets submitted back to the library, it's going through a few gating functions to get into the library. So number one, somebody in the team will have contributed that prompt back to the AI Tiger team to be considered for entry into the prompt library. And then the Tiger team will apply a few different tests to that prompt. So one of the first things that they want to test is the prompt cognizant of governance and standards that we want to apply. And by the way, this is the biggest mistake that almost every company makes when it comes to AI initiatives inside the business. They don't bring governance and standards into the process. They usually just deal with that when it becomes a problem, when they get the first phone call to say, oh, somebody uploaded a freaking customer contract into ChatGPT, or, oh, we just uploaded the whole source code for the product into ChatGPT. So at that point, they kind of react to it as a crisis rather than getting ahead of it.
Or we copy and pasted information into a customer email that we weren't allowed to.
Exactly. And depending on what part of the world you are in, the consequences for that are different.
We've got GDPR, severe
compliance problems in Europe. The US is a bit more of the Wild West and you can get away with more, but fundamentally it's a bad idea. So you start with governance and standards, and one of the first things that you start with on governance and standards is prompt profiles. So think about a prompt profile as a system prompt for that part of the business. So what do we want all marketing prompts to be cognizant of? We want them to be cognizant of our tone of voice, our
customer avatar,
our ICP, or you list our battle cards, our product features and benefits document, and to have access to all that stuff before it goes ahead and writes a marketing prompt. Okay, so
but that would be the system prompt, not the user prompt.
Well, prompt profiles can be different. So in a custom GPT, you'd store it as a system prompt. But if it's not a custom GPT, it would just form part of the prompt. Okay. And so where you use it and when you use it as a system prompt versus a prompt profile depends on the use case. And each part of the business will have their prompt profiles. So again, before you go and engage anybody, you sit down and you write your prompt profiles for each part of the business. Now, as an example of what that looks like, maybe your legal prompts are focused on things like compliance. They're focused on risk mitigation. They're focused on data handling. Your customer service prompts profiles, they want to deal with things like tone of voice, de-escalation protocols, escalation paths inside the company. And so you have to write your prompt profiles and codify them into every single prompt that gets contributed back to the prompt library. Okay.
So there's a kind of
number
red
one
team,
mistake businesses make. Don't consider governance.
So your Tiger
standards.
team isn't just working hard in the departments to help implement the AI, but they're providing a kind of red team quality control layer for the prompts that are trying to be contributed continually. And then I would imagine a lot of them will have to be augmented or downright rejected just because they're either poorly architected or they don't pass these kind of compliance type.
You see, the big insight here is the Tiger team's not the team that's going to come up with all the prompts.
No.
The business at large is going to contribute through a form, if it's being done right, hundreds of prompts. And then a percentage of them are going to make it through the Tiger team for review, have the prompt profiles and the governance and standards applied to it before they make it into the prompt library. Meaning by the time an employee who contributed that gets to use it, It's the company approved version of that prompt.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think, again, we're going to continue charging on here, but just look at everything that we've had to cover to try and do this right.
Yeah.
Before we even got to something as simple and as basic as prompt engineering.
Yeah.
So we're at prompt engineering now, and one of the steps that people bypass beyond prompt engineering is they're so intoxicated by the idea of an agent running off and completing tasks and retrieving information on their behalf that they actually bypass the prompt engineering process and go straight to GPT building.
Yeah. Like
Using normally, so if you were in Gemini, their in-house, their baked-in GPT builder is Gems. If you're in OpenAI, they've just got a chat GPT builder, custom GPT builder. And by the way, it's like, do as I say, not as I do. I spent months trying to get the internal custom GPT builder to work properly and consistently inside my own business. And I'll tell you what, that was an exercise in frustration.
Yeah.
Because it turns out, before you start using these things, you have to understand that the way that it'll ingest your information using that builder is generally PDFs or Word documents.
Mm-hmm.
They'll normally be poorly constructed stuff that you've produced yourself.
Unstructured data.
And trying to get that to produce output that's low hallucination, high quality and consistent is almost impossible over time.
Yeah.
Can we talk for a wee second about why that is?
Okay, so before we get to that, right, let's talk about the difference between a system prompt and a user prompt, because
right,
it's
okay.
going to inform that
okay.
part of the conversation.
Okay. We're dialing it back a couple of minutes. Yeah.
So a user prompt is the kind of prompt that everybody would recognize. You go, hey, assume the role of this and solve this problem for me, and here's the context that you need to
Role
know.
assign, context, execute. Yeah.
Yeah, race,
Yeah.
role, action, context, execute.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what everybody would understand as a user prompt. A system prompt is a prompt that you would assign a custom GPT or an agent. And the difference between a system prompt and a user prompt would something it would need to be cognizant of in every single time it's executed.
Yeah.
So that you don't have to keep typing that over
Yeah.
and over again. That's why prompt profiles lend themselves really well to actually be in system prompts.
Yeah.
So every agent that's solving a problem has a meaningful system prompt that allows that agent to take on a persona to solve, if it's written properly, a very narrowly focused problem with a ton of context about the problem it's trying to solve and examples of what good output looks like. And it knows that every time it runs the prompt, every time you put a user prompt in, so that you don't have to feed it all that context every time.
Exactly.
So that's the difference between a system prompt and a user prompt. Now, back to agents. How do you make agents work? So before we get into that, it's probably worth saying that it is my view that all of software and all of business will, over the next 18 to 24 months, get swallowed whole by agents.
GPTs and agents, yeah.
No, by agents and GPTs are the same thing.
That's exactly the point I was about to
By
make.
agents and workflows.
Yeah. People are confusing GPTs with actually agents
So let's
and their
talk.
capability.
So let's talk about the current. So the way that most people today can build an agent is they build a custom GPT or a gen in ChatGPT. What is the limitation of that? The limitation of that is the only way that anybody can interact with that agent is if they are a paid ChatGPT subscriber.
Yeah.
Because when you go and share the link for that agent, it's not going to work.
If you send it to a customer that doesn't have a ChatGPT
They
account,
won't be able to
be able
use
to
it,
interact
right?
with it. Yeah.
And then separately, you've got workflows.
Yep.
So workflows is where you can daisy chain together processes inside your business. And one of those nodes in the daisy chain could be an AI agent node that solves a specific problem.
Yeah.
The problem is, because your custom GPT that you built in OpenAI is effectively behind that paywall, there is no way to use that node in your custom NAN workflow.
Yeah.
So there's a big disconnect between the two things. This is why Salesforce.com are massively doubling down on Agentforce. So Salesforce.com run pretty much the entire Fortune 500, and they've got a platform
CRM,
called Agentforce.
sales and marketing, and
Yeah. that allows people to build unlimited numbers of agents and then connect those agents to
A front
workflows.
end. Yeah.
So the problem with agents so far, and the biggest issue I've seen with agents, is people construct them and their task is way too broad to be consistent.
100%. It's the biggest problem.
So they go, right, my company does X and I'm going to build an agent that I can put on my website that solves every problem for that a customer could possibly think of.
Retrieve this and do that and send it here and analyze that and send it to a GPT output node that creates it. And you basically bamboozle it with too many tasks at the one time. So the more defined your task is, the narrower that task is, the best chance you've got at the agent doing the retrieval, the GPT doing the retrieval work properly.
And when people think of an agent they want to deploy in a problem they want it to solve, when I hear that problem it's trying to solve, I then think that that's actually 10 sub-agents underneath the agent.
Yeah.
Each one narrowly focused with a killer system prompt that's trying to solve one or two problems maximum. That's the only way you can make agents consistent and work at a level of consistency that's production ready. Everybody's got a demo they can show where it worked one time out of 10 and
100%
did a great job. But to make these things production ready, you've got to drill them down into sub-agents.
And as you know, one of the big technical breakthroughs that we had to come up with, and you were a great help to us on this, is that because our team members internally understood the foibles and the mistakes that our in-house agent was making in terms of sales and the customer support agent, they were still able to use it consistently and it was still very helpful internally. But the holy grail, of course, is all this information it's providing to our internal sales team is all fantastic information that it should be providing to customers on a front end as well. But we could never trust or release it to customers because we couldn't get the hallucination rate under roll because it was just fundamentally poorly architected, and there is a better way to architect them.
So I think practical examples are always better when you're trying to break this stuff down. So why don't you talk about what you've built for your own internal purposes, the issues that you're currently all the problems that that's trying to solve for you internally. Let's categorize them out. All the types of reasons a customer can get in touch. Yeah. That one GPT is trying to solve every one of their reasons. And what you and I have concluded would need to happen in order for this to truly be a customer-facing capability. Yeah. So I think this will help bring it to life for the audience if we just talk practical examples.
So without giving away the keys to the kingdom with your competitors who are probably listening to this podcast, let me tell you enough to be dangerous. So we have a sales GPT internally that ingests all the data sheets for every band that we have, just all the key information from them.
And again, just to unpack that for people, it's cognizant of all the information related to every
it knows
band.
every review that we've ever, it's got perfect recall on across every line of commentary of every review that we've ever received for that band. It knows every song on every band set list. It knows all the key sales features of that band. It knows
if it's a 4-piece,
it knows the instrumentation of the band, if they've got
saxophone.
saxophone, if they do Kaylee. It knows absolutely everything about that band. And so we were trying to build a generalized sales GPT based on that information. Here's some of the problems we ran into. Give me all the Oasis songs that the Big Papas play. And so it will do one or two things. Because of how the PDFs are constructed, it will mistake songs on other bands' set list for Oasis songs in the Big Papas set list, and it'll give you a gigantic long set of Oasis songs that the Big Papas play, and they don't play half of them.
Yeah.
Or because it's always optimizing for token efficiency, and it runs a lot of it runs a lot of broad spectrum keyword searches, it will only partially retrieve the number of Oasis songs on the band's set list. Because it's ultimately scanning 700 pages, 700 PDFs of documentation, and trying to, and they're all, we've demarcated them and separated them as best we possibly can, but it's ultimately getting confused with crossover between all the different band information.
So again, just to play this back for the audience, what you've done is you've taken your entire database of Axe and you're basically spitting it out as a series of PDF documents to hydrate the custom GPT that you've built,
which has got a brilliant system prompt
with proprietary information about your network of Axe. Yeah. And it turns out that 700 pages of PDFs actually makes a shit database. Unstructured data makes a shit database at scale.
But there's another issue. So for speed and speed of retrieval, which really matters when you're trying to build a front-end service, It runs a lot of broad spectrum keyword search just to try and retrieve the information quickly. It performs much better when you use one of the O3 reasoning models or the GPT-5 thinking to interrogate the database. But there's a gigantic time penalty for using that, which makes it unsuitable for deploying as a front end solution as well.
But let's zoom out a bit. What you're talking about there is one thing. You're talking about
retrieval,
a set list retrieval request for a band
that will not produce accurate and consistent results.
That's just one thing. What's all the other things somebody could get in touch about? They could get in touch about the composition of a band. Do they have live sax? They could get in touch about price and availability for a band. They could get in touch with
comparisons between bands.
I like
the hype and the Big Papas. Can you give me the key sales features between the two of them?
They could get in touch with a complaint.
Yeah.
God forbid, right? Because you're not perfect.
Well, we've got a customer support GPT for that, but it's all hydrated with the same
I'm just
data.
trying to create the optics of there's loads of different reasons a customer could get in touch, and there's loads of different pieces of information they could want.
Exactly.
And one agent cannot do all of that stuff consistently, right? So let's take one example. Let's say that somebody comes on the website and they go, I am interested in understanding what the key differences is between the Big Papas and Three Car Trick.
Yeah.
Two different bands. Instead of reading 700 pages of PDFs and then try to reason across that and come up with a result, in my mind, I think about two things. I think about two tool calls that make real-time requests to your database of bands.
Yeah.
And the first tool call is retrieve the list of bands mentioned in the... Use an agent or use a tool call that retrieves the list of bands that were mentioned in the request. Then there's a second request that says, hit up our comparisons agent.
Tool call comparison agent,
that is only focused on one narrow task, which is comparing one band to another and has a system prompt that reflects that task.
And so as you know, we're already doing both of those things. And we're in the process of getting that to the point where it's production ready and we can put a front end on it. So we'll not say any more on that because we are close to giving away and there's a very specific way in which we let it access the data and how it accesses the data.
So let's use Claude Code as a better example.
Yeah.
Claude Code, which is the AI coding tool, launched sub-agents.
Yeah.
Okay. And so people go into Claude Code and go, make me a CRM system. What a silly request, right? Yeah. Way too vague, not specific enough. So Claude has got this plan mode, and now they've got a new feature called sub-agents. And so when Claude takes your request, if you said, hey, make me a CRM designed for wedding bands, and I want to capture these data points, and here's the reports that I want it to produce on autopilot on this cadence, and you provide it a decent spec, instead of starting to write code, the first thing Claude goes is, right, what sub-agents do I need to go and invoke in order to solve this?
So there's an orchestrator layer. Yeah.
It's called plan mode.
Yeah.
So plan mode runs on Opus 4.1, and Opus 4.1 says, right, in order to build this out, we're going to need a front-end agent, and that front-end agent is only trying to build out front ends for websites, and it's got an ultra-specific system prompt and a very tight tech stack that it can use. Then there's a back-end agent. Then there's a database migrations agent. Then there's you name it. And you can have as many sub-agents as you like. And so the big key takeaway I want everybody to understand here, and why every business in the future is going to have 100 agents, and every SaaS product they use is going to have 100 agents each inside it, is agents and workflows are going to swallow software and business in general. It doesn't matter what the industry is, and it doesn't matter what the software is. So it's this idea where you take a big task and you break it down into much, much smaller tasks, and then you have narrowly focused single-purpose agents that go and solve that thing, bring the data back, and then an orchestrator agent presents that back to the customer.
Yeah.
That I have just described what business is going to look like to you in the next 18 to 24 months.
And that has been an incredible leg up for us, which we are 4/5 of the way through implementing, and we think is going to be a real game changer for us.
So to bring this home, we've talked about agents and sub-agents and needing hundreds of agents to run a big company in the future. And that's awesome. You've now got your agent and it's doing a thing. But if you want to daisy chain work together and build workflows, the missing part here is how do you invoke that awesome agent you built as part of your workflow builder? Yeah. And so that's the second part of this. It's building the agents in such a way where they can be used in workflows that you then automate inside the business.
So the
And
agent,
combination of the two things is going to describe all of software.
all of software
in the future.
And there's a bunch of tools already that does that.
Yeah.
One of which we might be able to speak a wee bit more about in the future. But right now there's very well known tools out there like Make.com and N8N and stuff like that. And there's a bunch of no code tools that you can use to stitch together processes and stuff. But you're absolutely right. This will all be.
Yeah.
This is how business will operate in the future.
So workflows and agents, folks, you heard it here first. Workflows and agents is swallowing business and software in its entirety.
But before you get anywhere near prompts, workflows or agents, there is a ton of groundwork to be completed and embraced so that when you eventually get there, you get all the benefits and all the output that you're looking for.
Yeah. And as a business, you're trying to, what companies need is education more than anything else.
Yeah.
They think they need automation, and what they actually need is education.
Yeah.
What they need is 100 people, 200 people, 50 people, 500 people in the business that really, really understand this stuff.
Yeah.
And the micro improvements that creates in everybody's day, week, and month is where the overwhelming majority of the ROI is.
Yeah.
And then there's specific use cases. If you're a software business, there is a complete misunderstanding about how AI coding tools accelerate the software development process, but we'll save that
for another day.
For another day.
So there you go, guys. Unfortunately, the big takeaway here at the end of all this is to do AI implementation properly, there's a much bigger time investment than required, and unfortunately, there's a much bigger financial investment than you maybe originally thought there was.
And you need somebody to hold your feet to the fire and keep you accountable.
Yeah.
And that's a really big part of it.
So you can listen to this show back, and if you can go step by step by step by step, good luck to you. If you can call Paddy and I on 0800 fuck off. We're way too busy.
Correct. You can meet me on the corner of don't call me, and there's no way for you to get my number.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I think we've done it again.
Yes. Hopefully people manage to get something meaningful and useful out of that. And we will continue this discussion for many weeks to come, I'm sure.
Yep. All right, guys.
All right. What's that? Episode 23, 24, something like
We're
that.
We're getting to the halfway point almost.
In the can. All right, folks. Woo. Have a good week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.